He's had a real problem with Elon from the beginning of this thing, but it's like he's in this leftist thought bubble. He is in the most leftist thought bubble available, which is Hollywood. And, and I think also, he famously, there's some videos of him in blackface, and those came out, and he had to apologize for them. And I think he took that hit and like really doubled down the other direction.
Struggle to even mention that guy's name. He's such an absolute. I can't stand him. But anyway, it's just my thought bubble out loud. We took a look at some of their reactions to the news of Trump's win. Look at this.
Hey there. How are you doing? If you watch the show regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great. Yeah, me neither.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate. It was a terrible night for poor people, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO.
You know how much it costs to produce Jimmy Kimmel's show? I guarantee you it's tens and tens of millions. It could be as much as 100 million. I have no idea. You know how much Tucker's video cost? Nothing. You know how much Jimmy Kimmel, how many people he gets tuning in on an average night? Just last week, his average was, in the overall, meaning all viewers, 1.5 million. In the key demo, 236,000. Tucker would have been embarrassed to pull that on any night he was on the Fox News channel.
There's not a chance in hell that this is funny or gonna work. And when you see those flat, corny, late-night monologue jokes with no audience, Colbert, there's Jimmy Kimmel, there's Fallon. What they're doing is just like reading off of a teleprompter. So a bunch of really good joke writers wrote them some stuff, and then they're playing to the audience, and the audience is like laughing, so they get this feedback, and they know how to do that. They stand there, and there's applause signs, and then there's producers. There's the warm-up guy that's literally telling people to applaud. They're like, okay, explaining to the people, okay, when Jimmy comes out, I want a big round of applause. Let's practice this right now. And toxic to the point where, the Elon Musk joking around about my pronouns are prosecute Fauci. Jimmy Kimmel made a tweet back to him. He said, your pronouns are ass and hole, which is pretty funny. But then
Did he really?
Yes. And so then I read that, and there was people saying, please don't joke about pronouns. It's transphobic to joke about pronouns. So they were chiding him. Nobody's going to care anymore. It's like you're seeing it take place with late night television. Nobody gives a fuck about it anymore.
I know.
And it's slowly, you have a bad business model, and you're not adapting.
Yeah, the creativity's gone for late night comedy.
That's him or a writer, can't you tell?
Jimmy Kimmel?
Yeah.
No, it's him, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
good. That's a good one.
He's a comic.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, he used to host The Man Show. I mean, he's done some pretty outrageous back in the day.
Yeah.
For hee-hees and ha-ha's.
No, that's a good joke on top of a good joke.
Yeah, it's a good joke.
Horrified after yours truly said in 2018 that people used to don dark makeup in order to imitate well-known black celebrities, and it wasn't a big deal. Absolutely ate up the performance by Hollywood darling Mr. Kimmel, whose blackface costumes included his oft-repeated bit as basketball star Karl Malone.
Joe Rogan hilariously destroys Jimmy Kimmel. On live TV, that headline practically writes itself, but the real story is even wilder than the caption suggests. Picture Joe in his Austin studio, leaning back, eyes sparkling, microphone crackling, as someone drops the bombshell that Jimmy Kimmel just got slapped with a $500 million lawsuit from former President Trump. Before the clip of Kimmel's shaky monologue even finished buffering, Joe was already laughing like he'd discovered comedy's hidden cheat code. The idea of a late-night host who spent years mocking a sitting president suddenly facing courtroom wrath sent Joe into a grin so wide listeners swore they heard it. The laugh grew louder when the details rolled in. Allegations of defamation, sky-high damages, and a Hollywood ego colliding head-on with political dynamite. Joe was transfixed, turning each sentence into a punchline, and he never once had to raise his voice. Rogan started by warming his audience with the simplest truth. Kimmel lives in a Hollywood thought bubble so snug, the poor guy can't even see the joke closing in on him. Joe pointed out that Jimmy's safe space sarcasm plays great to a room full of producers waving applause signs, but it fizzles harder than flat soda once the cue cards vanish. He compared Kimmel's nightly teleprompter routine to watching a chihuahua bark at a SWAT team, loud, relentless, and painfully unaware of the danger it provokes. Listeners burst out laughing, and they could practically hear late-night credibility shattering. Then Joe turned to the lawsuit itself. $500 million. Not a cease and desist, not a bruised ego dressed up in legalese, but a true courtroom wrecking ball. That number alone was enough to send Rogan into fits of disbelief. He joked that Kimmel must have guzzled whatever magical potion lets a house cat challenge a freight train, because only pure delusion could explain mocking the most litigious political heavyweight alive and expecting zero fallout. Joe's laughter rolled across the studio like thunder, the kind that makes even the sound techs grin. He quickly reminded everyone of Kimmel's own skeletons. The blackface skits, the fake inner-city dialect, the endless anti-Trump sermons served up with a wink and a studio audience laugh track. Rogan didn't rant. He sliced. "Bro, you wore a fat suit and brown makeup on national TV," he marveled, wondering how the internet somehow let Jimmy keep the moral high ground crown. Viewers could almost see Kimmel scrambling backstage, deleting old clips like a kid frantically erasing chalkboard insults before the principal storms in. But Joe wasn't alone in the roast. Megyn Kelly joined the frenzy with surgeon-level precision, calling Jimmy the hall monitor who still thinks he's a rebel. Joe loved it. He fed off her every line, riffing that late-night hosts believe they're untouchable simply because the applause never stops. Yet here came Trump, lawsuit in hand, ready to show that the castle walls aren't made of steel. They're made of ratings, and ratings are tanking. Joe rattled off numbers. Kimmel's 1.5 million viewers, a measly 236,000 in the key demo, while Tucker Carlson's basement videos pull 8-digit view counts in pajama pants. The math alone felt like a punchline. Rogan's assessment was merciless. He said Kimmel's jokes have all the edge of warm milk, soothing, bland, and forgettable. Real comedy, Joe argued, comes from risk, from that electric sense you might actually get canceled for daring to be funny. Jimmy, on the other hand, memorizes punchlines written by a committee of nervous interns whose biggest fear is losing health insurance, then basks in manufactured laughter. Joe painted the scene, producers priming the crowd, the warm-up guy rehearsing applause cues, the neon applaud sign blazing like a Vegas slot. It was theater, not humor, and Rogan just tore down the curtains. He shifted gears, noting that Hollywood keeps rewarding Kimmel, hosting the Oscars again, glowing press coverage, despite ratings free-falling like confetti. Joe wondered aloud how much ABC spends producing Jimmy's show. Tens of millions? Maybe even 100? All for numbers that wouldn't impress a mid-level YouTuber. That's when he pounced on the fatal irony, a supposed comedy renegade crucifying Trump nightly, while his own brand depends on the corporate machine he claims to subvert. It was like seeing a vegan secretly scarf down steak in the parking lot. Then Joe zoomed out to the culture war. He recalled Elon Musk's cheeky, "pronouns are prosecute Fauci" tweet that triggered Kimmel, prompting Jimmy to fire back with a playground insult. Rogan read the exchange aloud, then pointed to the swarm of social media scolds insisting pronoun jokes are off limits. Humor, he insisted, dies the moment fragile feelings dictate boundaries. Kimmel, champion of that restrictive mindset, suddenly faces a lawsuit so gigantic it could rewrite his next 50 monologues. The irony tasted sweeter than victory whiskey. At this point, the studio buzzed. Joe imagined Kimmel's next show with front-row seats reserved for attorneys, every punchline a potential exhibit. He quipped that Jimmy might start a new segment titled Allegedly, just to survive. The idea became a running gag. Whenever Joe referenced one of Jimmy's weak zingers, he'd pause, throw his hands up, and cry, "Allegedly?" Chat exploded with laughing emojis. Yet Rogan's takedown wasn't pure mockery. It carried a lesson. Being loud isn't bravery, he argued. Late-night hosts chased shock value until shock meant nothing. Meanwhile, real risk moved to independent platforms where the crowd, not advertisers, decides what's funny. Joe's own empire, hundreds of millions of downloads, proved the point. He didn't need applause signs or canned laughter. He needed truth, curiosity, and the freedom to pivot when a conversation got weird. As the conversation circled back to the lawsuit, Joe grew almost gleeful. He pictured Kimmel Googling, "How many jokes equal defamation?" while lawyers drafted motions thicker than Hollywood screenplays. He imagined Jimmy mortgaging late-night desk mugs and celebrity phone numbers just to cover retainer fees. Joe's voice dropped to that conspiratorial whisper listeners love. "You can smell the panic," he said. Somewhere a writer's room is rewriting jokes so fast the keyboards are smoking. Meghan's commentary echoed the sentiment. She called the suit karmic comedy, a moment when cheap shots finally cost something. Joe nodded, adding that this wasn't censorship, it was consequence. If you throw pebbles at a freightliner, don't be shocked when the train sends an invoice. In Joe's analogy, the invoice just happened to read $500 million. He paused to let the absurd number hang like a neon sign flashing pay up. Then came the philosophical closer. Rogan mused that Kimmel spent years chasing relevance by mocking power, yet the second power pushed back, he looked fragile. Joe compared it to a carnival dunk tank. Jimmy splashed everyone in sight, but the moment the crowd found a bigger target, he forgot he was still sitting over water. Bro, Joe chuckled. The carnival just ended, and the dunk tank's on fire. He wrapped with one final twist of the knife, saying Kimmel finally achieved his dream, Trump's full attention. Only it wasn't a spicy tweet or an outraged soundbite, it was a stack of papers heavy enough to level a coffee table. Joe imagined the delivery, courier knocking, Jimmy signing, camera flashes catching that instant realization that the joke had boomeranged. And while Rogan couldn't predict the verdict, he guaranteed the process itself would be the funniest thing to hit late night in years. Lawsuits move slowly, but humiliation streams instantly. Across social media, the fallout spread like wildfire. Clips of Rogan's tirade hit X, TikTok, and every corner of YouTube's short-form feed. Comment sections exploded with side-by-side edits of Jimmy's blackface sketches and his stern lectures on morality. Viewers weren't just giggling, they were clocking the hypocrisy. One viral post read, "Remember when comedy punched up? Jimmy punches sideways at safe targets, Joe just punched him out." Within hours, the hashtag number Kimmel Karma trended worldwide. Elon Musk chimed in, dubbing it Peak Clown World, televised in HD. Legal YouTubers joined the party, translating the lawsuit's dense pages into memes. A patent attorney joked that Kimmel could pay damages at one forced grin per episode forever, and Rogan boosted it with a laughing emoji. Independent creators smelled blood. They uploaded breakdowns, timelines, and countdowns to the first court date. Rogan predicted that if Jimmy survives the ordeal, maybe he'll rediscover the reckless spark that once made him edgy. If he doesn't, late night will simply evolve without him.